Hey, second graders, today we are going to be reading a book called Lost and Found Cat, The True Story of Kunkush's Incredible Journey. Before we start reading today, do a quick mood meter check-in. Think about how you're feeling right now. I can say that right now I'm feeling in the green. I feel pretty relaxed and calm. If you are thinking about how you're feeling on the mood meter, also be thinking about how can you get yourself in the best place on the mood meter for learning. What strategies can you use, like taking deep breaths or picturing your best self? Maybe taking a little break and moving around, getting some exercise. What can you do to make sure you're in your best place for learning right now? Okay, and also before we start reading this book, let's think about all the things that good readers do when they either read a story or listen to a story. Okay, you're going to be practicing making text-to-self connections while you listen to the story. Make text-to-text connections. You should also be making inferences. Remember, that's where you take clues from the book and put them together with your ideas to figure out what the author is not saying. Okay, you're also going to be visualizing, so making a picture in your head of what might be happening in the story. And lastly, make sure that you're always wondering or asking yourself questions about what's going on in the story. Okay, so today our story is called Lost and Found Cat. Before we start reading, I want you to just take a look at the front cover. Think about the title. It says The True Story of Kunkush's Incredible Journey. So make a prediction in your head right now. What could this book be about? Think about what predictions you might make about this story before we start reading. You also might be thinking about making text-to-self connections. I know I'm making a text-to-self connection right now before I even start reading because I can see that this girl has a cat and I also have a pet cat, so I'm making a connection with this story. Okay. Late one night in August 2015, a car driven by a smuggler snuck out of the city of Mosul in the country of Iraq. The smuggler's passengers were a mother and her 4 daughters and 1 son. Their father had recently died. Surah, the mother, had paid the smugglers to help her family flee the country. That means run away. Mosul had become too dangerous. A few days earlier, the family had gotten ready to leave. Since they could only bring what they could carry, they had packed just 1 bag full of food and water. They would buy clothes later, but Surah had decided they could not leave without their beloved cat, Kunkush. Surah prayed that the cat, hidden in a small carrier, would stay quiet. If the smugglers discovered Kunkush, he would make her pay a great deal more money. Two hours later, the car stopped and they were told to get out. Another smuggler met them and led them on foot through forests and over mountains, stopping only to eat and sleep in the woods. Surah feared for her children, Rihab, who was 18, Hakam, who was 16, Mab, who was 11, Albab, who was 10, and Ansab, who was 9. But they saw this as an adventure, often singing as they walked through or during the 3-day journey. Surah and her son, Hakam, took turns carrying Kunkush at the back of the line, so that if the cat meowed, the smuggler would not hear him. Whenever they stopped to rest, Surah took Kunkush behind some trees to let him out and feed him. On the 4th day, they reached a Kurdish village, where another smuggler was waiting to take them to Istanbul, Turkey, in a bus. Turkey is another country. While the smuggler drove, the family had to be on the lookout for patrols trying to catch them. The family stayed in the city for 2 weeks, moving from one apartment to another. At least Kunkush could wander freely inside. Right now, you might be making an inference about how the kids feel, how the cat might be feeling. Think about what you know and what's being shown or told in the book to make an inference. Finally, it was time to cross the Aegean Sea to Greece. Greece is another country. The family boarded another bus and drove to a place called Izmir on the Turkish coast. Then they walked 3 hours along the beach until they were told to put on life jackets. The Greek island of Lesbos was 6 miles across the water. Kunkush and his family were crammed or squished aboard a flimsy rubber boat. It was meant to carry only 25 people, but there were more than 60 men, women, and children on the boat, plus one secret cat. You also might be making an inference here about how the characters are feeling right now. Remember, the author doesn't tell you how they're feeling, but you could infer by hearing about what this is like and by looking at the looks on their faces, how they might be feeling. Almost as soon as the overcrowded boat launched, it began taking on water because it was too heavy. From the shore, people shouted at the passengers to throw their belongings overboard to make the boat lighter, but most refused or said no. Sura tried to hold Kunkush's carrier above the water until a wave drenched them all. The sinking boat had to return to shore. As a crush of people got off, Kunkush's carrier door was broken. Determined to make the crossing, Sura told her kids to stay aboard or stay on the boat. The boat launched again, this time with fewer passengers. Sura was scared because only her son Hakam could swim, but her daughters were unconcerned or not worried, enjoying the ride in the sun after weeks of hiding. The 3-hour crossing to Lesbos felt like it flew by, thanks to their excitement. Volunteers in Greece waited on the shore to help hundreds of refugees arriving every day. As soon as the boat reached the beach, panicky, shivering passengers scrambled to get off. Hakam splashed ashore with Kunkush and put the carrier on dry land. Then he hurried back to help his mother off of the boat. There he is right there with the basket. Wet and frightened, Kunkush pushed his way out of the broken door of his carrier. He quickly disappeared into the forest like a deer. Right now, you might be wondering what would happen next. While the rest of the boat passengers were loaded onto a bus to continue their journey, the family refused to leave without their cat. Several volunteers helped them look for Kunkush. They searched for hours. At last, they had to give up. The heartbroken family needed to leave, taking the next step toward their new home. In a little fishing village on Lesbos, near where Kunkush's family had arrived, there lived a colony or group of island cats. Nobody owned them, but fishermen kept them well fed. A few days after Kunkush's family had left, volunteers noticed a white cat hanging around the local cafes. The white cat's fur was filthy and matted. That means it was really dirty and tangled. He looked like he was starving. The local cats seemed to know he was a stranger. They hissed and spat and chased him away. One of the volunteers, Amy, told her friend and fellow volunteer Ashley about the cat she'd seen. Could this white cat be the one the family had lost? After questioning villagers and searching the island, Amy and Ashley found the white cat and took him to a local vet. Dr. Constantina shaved the cat's matted, filthy fur. She gave him his shots and other medicines. But this cat needed a name for now. Dr. Constantina suggested Dias, to give him strength. Dias is the Greek name for Zeus, the king of the ancient Greek gods. The friends took Dias back to Amy's apartment. His shaved fur was still full of sand and bugs. Amy bathed and scrubbed him until he was all clean. 5 minutes after his bath, the exhausted cat collapsed face down, mid-meow, and slept. Dias stayed with Amy for over a month. Often she prowled around her apartment, yowling loudly. Amy believed that he was looking for his family. Amy and her friends were determined to reunite Dias with his family, but where were they? Volunteers created flyers, and Amy's friend Michelle, back in the United States, made a Facebook page for him. People contributed money to help pay for his medical care and travel. Before long, news stories about the lost cat appeared all around the world. Millions of people saw the videos, articles, and Facebook updates about Dias. He had become famous. Here it says, Reunite Dias. Please click here to donate. Amy was fairly sure that Dias's family had left Greece. Many of the refugee families had traveled to Germany. Since Amy's time in Lesbos was ending, she made plans to take Dias to Germany. She and Dias flew to Berlin, which is a different city, where a British couple named Emma and Simon had agreed to take care of him and continue the search. If his family could not be found after a year, they would adopt him. And then, on Valentine's Day, the family saw their lost cat on a news website. The oldest daughter, Rehab, who had learned some English, contacted Amy and her friends through Facebook. Everyone had been looking in the wrong place. The family was living in Norway, not Germany. Rehab told Amy that Dias's real name was Kuntz. The volunteers arranged a Skype visit, which is a video call. When the family saw the fluffy white cat on the screen, they called Kuntz. His ears perked up. He started searching for his family. Right now, you might be wondering what's going to happen next. You might be making a prediction. I want you to predict in your head, what do you think would happen next in this story? A photographer named Doug in Lesbos in Germany, to show the refugee story to the world, agreed to fly with Kuntz from Germany to Norway. But when he got to the airport in Berlin, the supervisor behind the counter told him he could not board the plane. That carrier is too small, she said with a sniff. By this time, a crowd had gathered around Doug and his yowling white cat. Doug pleaded with her. He told her the carrier was the right size. That carrier is too small. The cat cannot turn around, she snapped. At that moment, Kuntz made a dramatic 180-degree turn inside his carrier. That means he turned all the way around. The crowd laughed, and the supervisor grudgingly agreed to allow them onto the plane. In Norway, Doug rented a car and drove 2 hours to the family's new home. They were waiting eagerly for him. So was a team of camera people and reporters. Sura opened the door and blinked at the bright lights of the cameras. She burst into tears as Doug placed Kuntz in her arms. Ma Habibi, she murmured. That's Arabic for my darling. The entire family crowded around their long-lost pet. After 4 months and thousands of miles, Kuntz and his family were finally together in their new home. "We are all safe now," Sura said. And that is the end of the story. But here at the back of the book, we have some real photos of Kunkush's journey. A few of these captions say, "Like Sura and her children, these Muslim families have left their war-torn countries seeking safety in Europe." This one says, "Boat landings on Lesbos are chaotic as volunteers like Amy help to guide the boats to shore in the rough surf." Kuntz finally found his way to his community of wild cats, but they wouldn't let him join their group. You can see many of the cats here. Here it says, "By the time Amy and Ashley found Kuntz, he had been through very rough times. Kuntz is skinny and shaved, waits for his family to find him." Amy took good care of Kuntz in Greece until a foster family was found in Germany. Kuntz and his passport are ready for the trip to Germany. Sura was overcome with emotion when she was reunited with Kuntz. Sura and Kuntz were so happy to be together again in their new home in Norway. The whole family missed Kuntz. Finally, the family is complete. Kuntz makes himself at home in Norway. And Sura and her daughters pose with Kuntz's carrier. I hope that you guys really enjoyed listening to that story and hearing this true story about Kuntz and his family. I really enjoyed this story, and I hope that you guys were also working hard to make sure you were doing all the things that good readers do. I hope you had some good predictions and inferences and made a lot of connections with this story. All right, keep listening for more stories on this page, and I hope that you have a great day.